back, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another artsy video brought to you by The Craft Monster. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday, enjoyed your Christmas, and had a happy new year. So for today, we're going to be starting with a craft that is just a simple salt and pepper shaker DIY. This DIY comes with your own salt and pepper stand and flour base. So to start this craft, we're going to of course need all of our supplies. So I went ahead and purchased some salt and pepper shakers from Walmart. I like these better than the ones at Dollar Tree only because they have smooth surfaces where the Dollar Tree ones have a little bit of ridges in those. So these are Walmart salt and pepper shakers. I had some mason jars. Okay, you're going to need to have a bag of wooden balls or beads. They do come in like a large case of different colors, but I picked the wooden ones for this craft. This was also something I found at Walmart. It's just a little circle plaque. Okay, so you're going to need this for this craft as well. We also are going to need some acrylic paint in the color of white, some wood glue, some Mod Podge. This is the dishwasher safe one, so we're going to be using that. Labels. If you have a Cricut, that is the best way to print out your vinyl labels. So we're going to do that, and I've pre-made some of those. And then other tools like paintbrush, scissors, and all of that. So now that we have all of our supplies, let's jump in. We're going to start with our actual plaque here. So go ahead and remove all of the plastic off of it. Okay. And this plaque, this circle plaque, is going to actually act as our stand for the salt and pepper shaker. Okay. So now that I have this removed, I'm going to use this part because it does have a staple in it. I'm going to use this for the bottom of the stand. So this will act as our top surface, and this will be our base. So with the base side up, I'm going to take my wooden beads, and I'm going to take some wood glue and secure these to the base of this. And these wooden beads are going to act as feet to my stand. So before you glue it, just go ahead and place these where you think they go evenly. Because again, they're going to act as your feet to your stand, so you don't want your stand to be wobbly because it's not pretty even around. But this does not have to be perfect. Okay, so now that I have those in the kind of place where I want to put them, I'm going to take my wood glue and I'm going to lift this up and just put a nice amount, a nice droplet, and then place my wood bead right on top of there. And do that for all four. So we're going to take this and put this aside to allow it time to dry. It does set pretty quickly, but it's not fully set until about a good 24 hours. So everything else we're going to do with this stand, we want to do it with a gentle care. Okay, so we'll put this aside. So now, as that's drying, I'm going to take my mason jar. And in order for this to really look nice, we want to paint this. So we're going to take our white acrylic paint and put a nice layer of paint all around this entire jar. I'm going to take this sponge, and mine is pretty damaged because I use it a lot. I'm going to take this sponge and just apply a first coat onto this jar. The sponge, I find, works a lot better than a regular paintbrush, and it helps it to have like an even look around it. So I'm going to do that. Make sure you wipe off any excess paint because you don't want it to drip on your bottle. And then just put your hand inside the jar and start by kind of in a patting motion around the whole vase. Okay, and do this until your jar is fully covered. So now that we have a pretty good coat, it doesn't have to be perfectly even, and this is just the first coat. If you can get it all in one coat, that's perfect. If not, you can allow it to dry a little bit and then go around and touch up any areas that you missed. So now that we've done it with the mason jar, we're going to do the same thing with our salt and pepper shakers. So to get up to the neck of this, you may need to switch to a paintbrush and just gently paint. Just like this. Okay, so now we're going to let those salt and pepper shakers dry. So while they're drying, let's take a look at our tray and see if the feet have fully secured. Okay, so not 100%, but good enough to continue with the next steps for this tray. So just like we did with this salt and pepper shaker and our mason jar, we're going to paint this. Okay, so flip it into its correct position and just make sure that it has a good, even footing, and it does. Okay, so now we're going to take this and do the same exact method and paint this white. So now that we have the first coat of the top layer, we're just going to set this aside to let it dry. This will need a few applications of paint, and then you're also going to have to flip it onto the reverse side and do the same thing to this and all of the feet. So we're going to set this aside to let this dry, and now we're going to start working on our mason jar again. So let's put our paint over. This mason jar at this point now is fully dry, and it has a pretty rough looking coat. That's okay. We want this to look a little bit damaged, a little bit beat up to give us that farmhouse vintage look, okay? So this is fully covered. So what we're gonna do while everything else is drying, our salt and pepper shakers and our stand, we're going to dress this up a bit. So I have some twine here that I got from Dollar Tree, okay? We're gonna cut a nice long strand of this, and this is gonna wrap around the neck of our vase and create a little bow. So don't be afraid to go too long. If you have excess string, you can always cut it off, but it's better to have more than to have a string that's too short. Okay, so I've cut that down to size. And I'm gonna take this, and I generally like to use the part that has the words that, you know, this says Mason and Golden Harvest. I like to use this as the focal point of the vase. So I'm going to tie it from the back, okay, to make sure that bow aligns right over top of those words. And I'm going to wrap it around and cross these. And then once I've come around, at this point, it should be good enough to start tying it. So there's my bow. Now with these excess pieces, I'm just going to cut them off. So you may have to fidget with this bow to make it lay properly, but it's pretty easy to do. So now we have our bow in place. So let's go ahead and fill this because we're still allowing our things to dry. So I'm going to put this aside. What I went ahead and did was I purchased a few different bundles of flowers from different stores. These white, I don't even know exactly what they are, and red, I got these from Dollar General. They were actually having an autumn sale, so everything was 90% off, so I was able to get each one of these bundles for 10 cents. And then I got some other standard flowers. So we're gonna pick the colors that we like and then put a little bit of an arrangement in here. So I think I'm gonna go with one of these cranberry looking ones. I may use one of these gold, and these are from Dollar Tree. And then I'm probably gonna go with my white, traditional white flower. Okay, and maybe these white ones as well, these white. All right, so let's pick these. Okay, and obviously these stems are way too long. Okay, so we're gonna cut some of the flowers off just to make it small enough to fit into our mason jar. So now that we have them all cut, we're just going to arrange them in our mason jar. And you can play around with your arrangement. If it doesn't look exactly how you want it to look, you can maneuver it and fix it. All right, and there we have that. So we'll set this aside. Okay, so now that we finished our vase, we're going to come and take our salt and pepper shakers. Okay, and they're not fully dry, but they're dry enough for me to handle as long as I grab them by the tops. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take, just like we did with the mason jar, we're going to take our twine and we're going to put a bow around the necks of both of these. And you're obviously going to need a shorter length of rope, but don't cut it too short because again, you can cut the excess off. So do 2 strings about the same size, that way you're working with the same thing. So just go ahead and tie this around and in the same manner, wrap it around. Now I see that my string is getting a little bit short, so at this point I'm going to tie it. So let's see here. Now once you have your bows in place, you can always go back and secure them with hot glue, just to make sure they're nice and secure and won't come out. Okay, so this one, since it's a much smaller bottle, I need a much smaller bow. And it's a little bit more difficult to fidget with until you get that right bow. Okay. So I think that's good for this one. Okay. So because I think I cut it pretty well, I don't really have any excess to cut off. But to make sure that these loops don't come apart, I probably will go back and put some glue right there. So now I have my bow in place. I'm not going to touch this one because again it's still wet. I'm going to go ahead and add some little farmhouse detail to this bottle. So I do that by adding little stripes that almost seem distressed to give it a look of something older. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this white paint that I have left over and I'm just going to make it into gray. Okay. So you're going to need a fine point paintbrush or finer. This isn't actually fine, and you need just a very small amount of black. If you put too much black in, you will have a very dark gray. So I'm going to use a different tray to put a drop of black paint in, and I'm going to add it till I get the color that I want. Okay, and just one drop is enough. Okay. So I still have white paint in here. So what I'm going to do is take the tip of my paintbrush and take a very small amount and then mix it right in here to this white. And I'll do that until I get a good color. A small amount of black paint goes a very long way. So I have my gray. So on the front side of my bottle, I'm going to lightly draw as many lines as I want. I'm going to make sure that I make a point to have my lines appear to be broken lines or like they've been rubbed off. That just gives us a more vintage look. So I do this lightly with my brush, not hoping for anything to be perfect. And just like so. Just like that. Now that we have our bottle looking distressed, we're going to go ahead and add our vinyl letters to this. So I took my Cricut and I already printed out some simplistic letters. So a S and a P for salt and pepper. So now I'm going to actually transfer them onto the bottle. Okay, and there we have that. So I've placed my vinyl letters on the bottles. Okay. So to fully complete this project, the last step that I would do is I want to seal this so that these paint and this vinyl don't come off. So I went and bought Mod Podge. This formula allows it to be placed in the dishwasher on the top rack and not come off. So I would coat all of my items in this Mod Podge to give it a good seal. So here is the final look of what we've created. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you get a chance, send me a picture of your latest creation.